Now, the main thing that's being done right now by Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, is really focusing on Star Wars movies again and really treating that as the main thing over the Star Wars TV shows. He eventually wants to make that more or less of a supplement to the Star Wars franchise, kind of like how the Marvel films are the main thing and the TV shows are the secondary thing. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and without further ado, let's get right into the subject. Now, the one thing about all of this is that we know that Disney CEO Bob Iger has been in a constant shakeup with the executives, with the board, and even with the fans. You know, this has been an ongoing thing for a while now. Bob Iger really isn't all that well liked at the moment, especially with what's been going on right now with the Disney parks, especially with the Galactic Star Cruiser event. We just talked about that today, about how they are going to be closing that entire event by this September, or the experience, whatever you want to call it. So that just goes to show you that the fans are right. The fans wanted nothing to do with the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel and the experience because of how out of touch with Star Wars it really was, and let alone it was expensive. But without getting too off topic here, one thing that Bob Iger did talk about that goes to show you that they do want to continue something very special for the Star Wars fans has a lot to do with where Star Wars really all began, and that has a lot to do with the Skywalker saga and the episodic film format. And Bob Iger goes on to tease quite a number of things that seemingly confirms a Star Wars episode 10, 11, and 12. Let's dive right into this. Now, with Disney CEO Bob Iger preparing to make some big announcements at this year's D23 event. However, recently Bob Iger had something significant to say that seemingly confirms Star Wars episodes 10, 11, and 12 happening to continue the Skywalker saga. Now, Iger went on to state the following. In the beginning with the sequels, we viewed them as the last of the saga, and we marketed them as our final series of movies. For episode 9, we marked that as the finale of the Skywalker saga. Jumping ahead to where we are today, we began to realize that the episodic film format is a very big event for the fans, and we have been holding discussions on how we could continue the episodic format again and continue the story in that style. We always love the ideas of the Roman numeral system. It gives fans the most direct message that this is a linear story and that we want to continue doing that for the fan base. We know George always wanted to fulfill the Star Wars franchise with a 12th installment, and it's something that we did discuss with him back when we were working on episode 7 at the time, but we didn't feel it was necessary. We felt the best way to make those sequel films special was to make them feel like the last ones. Now, let me just say one thing about what Bob Iger is saying before I get to the next thing. I think that further was another reason why fans were so turned away from the sequels as well, is because these were being marketed as the last movies. They knew that they had a lot of, limited time to enjoy the films. They knew once The Last Jedi failed and it really broke apart, they knew they only had one film to kind of turn things around, and that really did not do the job. So basically what Bob Iger is saying here is that 10 through 12 is on the table. They have been brainstorming this, they have been going over plans for this, to go back to that episodic film format, and to go back to the Skywalker saga again. Now, granted that they are only now in the notes phase about figuring out where those movies are going to go. We've talked about this before. Even Iger has teased this before, but we've talked about, the different leaks and such about 10 through 12, about how they want to focus on Cade Skywalker as the new Skywalker story, kind of basing it off the Legacy Legends comics, stuff like that. And that's cool and all. I love that idea, but I'm not quite sure if a lot of fans will be sold on that. It really all depends. So I think before they do anything like that too rapidly, they have to prove themselves to the fan base that Ahsoka is going to do very well, that the follow-up to that series is going to perform outstanding as well, and they really have to deliver great experiences to the fans. Again, with the failure of the Galactic Star Cruiser, the Star Wars Hotel, whatever you want to call it, closing down by this September, this is breaking, by the way, today, it just goes to show you that the fans were right. They really can't come up with any excuse this time. The fans did not want to go ahead and check out this event or this experience because it did not respect the Star Wars franchise. That's just the flat-out truth. So, the next thing that I do want to go over here is what Bob Iger goes on to elaborate further. Alright? He goes on to state, so we have been brainstorming on where the story could go for the continuation, and we want to do things differently this time around once we get to expanding these movies again. I discussed this with George, and we both agreed that nothing can top eventizing Star Wars unless you have an episodic film that sends the message to fans that this is a linear, big story that spans decades and generations in the real world. It's special, and we would like to take our time on that decision, but it's something that we are talking about every single day on how we can make that work. We feel it's time to have no limits to what we want to do with this brand to satisfy our customers. Now, interestingly enough, guys, alright, given that we have a lot of things going on right now with Star Wars, we got the Acolyte, becoming a big disaster on Kathleen Kennedy's end of the spectrum there, Skeleton Crew, Din Djarin, it was a big mess. Pedro Pascal got let go from that show as 2 big cameos, and now you have the Star Cruiser Hotel falling apart, quite literally. It's going to begin breaking down by this September. They're getting rid of it. Who knows what it's going to turn into? They might turn it into something better and something else. That's an idea. That's something that they really should consider, maybe, but they won't do that. They're going to take their time on really kind of just focusing on how do they rebrand the franchise. That's going to cater to the fan base first, and then maybe they can, replace whatever was at the Star Cruiser Hotel. They can't just jump right into that too fast. So, it's interesting that they do want to go back to the episodic film format, and I like how he points out a very good point here, that the episodic films, it does indeed give the fans the most direct message, that this is a linear film format. Almost any common moviegoer will know this is episode 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever have you, and it's all linear. That you have to go ahead and watch the first film, the second and third in an organized way to get the story, to understand everything. And that's what Disney wants. And I think that they're realizing that that's going to further enhance the loyalty of Star Wars fans, especially the newcomers, is that if you release episodic films, they're going to have nothing but to do to check out the previous movies, to kind of get the overall George Lucas treatments of Star Wars. And that's what Disney wants to do. That's what Bob Iger wants to do. It's a strategy for newcomers to check out the past movies. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. If you're putting out regular solo films that have nothing to do with George Lucas's outlook, then they're most likely not going to go ahead and check out episodes, 1 through 9. It's very unlikely. In fact, I know a lot of newcomers to the Star Wars franchise right now that never even saw the originals and the prequels yet. They're just getting into the Disney Star Wars, movies and everything Disney, essentially. And they want to change that. They want to bring it back down to the bare bones and the basics. So overall, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.